Welcome back. It is the Vegas Take coming our way live here from Sin City. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp on 101.5 FM, 720 AM K-Dawn. We've been discussing, of course, the latest travails of the president and the hurricane situation and, of course, his prediction deal going down. And we had the callers chiming in. 702-257-5396 is the phone number. We're now joined on the phone lines by our guest, normally on Wednesdays, in the ring. Esteemed attorney Michael Avenatti joins us here. Michael, we appreciate you jumping in. How are you doing today?
What's up, Michael?
Excellent, gents. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing pretty good. We had a pretty heated discussion and a lot of banter going back and forth, Michael, with some Trump supporters as well as some on the right. As I brought up, of course, the Sharpie Gate that has been a talk of the nation basically for the past 48 hours plus, and a lot of discussions as to it's not a big deal. Why are you even talking about it? The hurricanes, what really matters? Who cares what the president has to say or has as far as predictions for other states getting hit? And I just wanted to get your take on this because I just think it's just one more indication that we have to bring into question the credibility of the president of the United States.
Well, I mean, I think that Trump is to blame to a significant degree. I mean, he's the one that will not let this go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy's like a petulant child. He's not like one. He is a petulant child. Anytime anything like this happens, he continues to dwell on it and draw attention to it. I mean, let it go. I mean, dude, you're president of the United States. I mean, I don't know if he realizes that yet, but, I thought that after the 2016 election, once he was elected, that he would take a breath and sit back in his chair and say, I've been elected president of the United States. And I thought that that would be a relatively big ego boost for him, right? I mean, you would think that would be a big deal.
Yeah, one would assume that it would be, right.
You would think that'd be a pretty big notch in your belt, being elected president of the United States, okay? And you would think that that would satisfy anyone's ego. But what's amazing to me is that being elected president of the United States has not satisfied this guy's ego. He has an insatiable ego that has to be fed completely or attempt to be fed completely on a consistent basis. What is the president of the United States doing, spending days arguing with people about whether Alabama was going to be hit or not? What is the president of the United States doing, arguing with people like Deborah Messing about various issues?
Mm-hmm.
What is the president of the United States doing, taking shots at people's wives on Twitter and the like? I mean, I want everyone to just take a step back and think about this. This is the president of the United States, and these are the things that he occupies his time with. I mean, that's the issue that I have. We've got big, important issues that face hardworking people in America day in and day out. We've got major international issues. We've got daily intelligence briefings. And yet here we are talking about Alabama, Sharpie Gate, et cetera. It's ludicrous.
As you know, Michael, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm the Trump supporter of the show. But I have noticed one thing that he seems to, and I'm going to ask you this, but have you noticed him ever admit that he's been wrong since he's been president of the United States under any circumstances at all?
No, I don't think he's admitted one time that he's been wrong or apologized. But I just don't, for the life of me, do not understand why this guy insists on dealing with these minute issues, this minutia that really doesn't matter at the end of the day. I mean, does he not have anything better to do than to engage in this nonsense? I mean, it's pathetic. How many of the people that are listening right now would take 3, 4, 5 days to engage in this nonsense? Not many.
There was one time where he did apologize, and of course that was after the tape came out, right? And he said that it was wrong and that he apologized. But then a matter of weeks later, it wasn't even weeks, it might have been days, he came out and said that it wasn't him on the tape. He tried to claim it wasn't him. So, even when he did apologize, and by the way, that's the one time in the past almost 3 years I can remember the president ever, saying he was sorry about anything. So his standard is that he's going to deny, and and try to turn things around or try to deflect on his own terms. That's what he is. That's the essence of what the president does. So, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, Michael, in the show. I said, look, he lies about stuff. It doesn't even matter. He lies about stuff he lies about things that are big and small. But what's so puzzling to those of us out there that I think are normal and that are rational and that are reasonable, we just ask ourselves, why would you lie about that? Or why would you lie about this? It's so petty and it's so small and it's so nonsensical that it doesn't even matter. It's absolutely baffling. And look, it's very difficult for me, as well it is for most Americans, and you, Michael, I'm sure, listening to you many occasions, it's difficult for you to fathom, given that, look, we are reasonable, normal people with empathy and with compassion, and I don't think the president possesses those qualities. So that's why he's able to operate the way that he operates, and it's very disheartening, to say the least.
Guys, look, I don't know about you, but I think that a lot of Americans we're exhausted by this.
We absolutely are.
I mean, this is exhausting. Every week it's something else. Every week it's another lie. It's another petty tiff with somebody, whether it's a Hollywood person or a reporter or, somebody on cable television. It's always something with this guy. I mean, doesn't he ever get tired with this nonsense? I mean, he is in his 70s. Doesn't he have other things better to do? You know what would be great? It'd be great and I don't care for the purposes of this point, whether it's a Republican or Democrat. Wouldn't it be great if we had a president that didn't have a Twitter account? I mean, could we just try that out like it used to be for maybe just 30 days? And then we wouldn't have to see cable television report on the tweets, and we wouldn't have to see the president defend his tweets, and we wouldn't have to see other members in government and people that should be looking out for our interests comment on the president's tweets. Can we go back to the days where the president of the United States did not have a Twitter account except for the White House account, where only major announcements were made? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to go back to those days. I hope that whoever replaces Trump, whether it's next year or 4 years from now, I think they should make an ironclad commitment that they will not have a personal Twitter account that they will use on a daily or hourly basis, because I'm exhausted by this nonsense.
I have no problem with Donald Trump, with any president of the United States, weighing in and giving his opinion and saying, hey, take shelter, trying to inform the people of the United States about the hurricane coming. But what he did there, instead of dealing with this national catastrophe, this disaster, he makes it all about him. And it takes away from what's actually going on, and I think that's bad for the country. And again, I'm a Trump supporter saying this right now, but he's doing this way too often.
He is over communicating, and he has over communicated, and he feels it necessary to weigh in on practically every issue that comes up in our society in some way, shape, or form. And it's too much. It's exhausting.
Well, full disclosure,
we spend every day or every other day in this country talking about what the president has tweeted or stated, et cetera. And people will say, well, don't talk about it. Why does the media talk about it? It's the president of the United States. That's why the media talks about it. His words matter. It's not like one of us tweeting or making comments about it.
Attorney Michael Avenatti joins us here in the Friday edition of the Vegas Take. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp. You guys talked about the Twitter angle here. And by the way, at the bottom of the hour, we'll be taking phone calls with Michael at 702-257-5396. In this atmosphere right now, it is the only way, though, that we hear from the president, given that all the standards, all the norms are out the door, right, guys? I mean, we're talking about a presidency, a White House that hasn't had a press briefing in I don't know how long. We have a new press secretary, but I haven't seen her. I can't name the press secretary right now off the top of my head, and I'm sitting here in Las Vegas hosting a political talk show, and I don't know her name off the top of my head.
I don't either.
That's pretty sad, right?
Well, but look, in the White House, in defense of the White House, which this doesn't happen very often, but while I agree that they have not had a formal press briefing, I mean, he is regularly making himself available to the gaggle, as he departs and arrives at the White House and answering questions in an off-the-cuff manner. I'm not saying that's a replacement for the press briefing, but he has provided some degree of access. But I want to go back and just make one last point about what we were just talking about.
Right.
You know that saying in sports, act like you've been there before?
Absolutely.
When somebody scores a touchdown, act like you've been there before, as opposed to having some big brouhaha that goes, I'm a little old school like that. I like spiking the football a little bit. I don't mind that. But I also subscribe to the act like you've been there before. Look, this guy's the president of the United States, right? He's been the president for 3 years now. Don't you think at some point he should act like the president of the United States, that he should have a certain degree of swagger and a certain degree of humility at the same time, where he acts like he's been there before? I mean, that's somebody that is comfortable in their own skin. This guy, the problem is that he is so insecure. He is patently insecure that he doesn't allow himself to conduct himself in that way.
Yeah, I don't think he really knows how to win. And I don't think that he doesn't walk with a big stick. He doesn't have that quiet confidence that we're kind of used to with former presidents of the United States. Are you worried that, when you've seen the gaffes that have taken place with Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders and obviously Trump, it looks to me like the most likely face of the political party of the President of the United States in the next 4 or 5 years is going to be almost 80 years old, Caucasian, and male. And these gaffes, these things that are taking place that are being picked up by the media, whether it's Bernie Sanders, telling a baby to calm down during a conference, or Joe Biden mixing up war stories, or Trump just being Trump, the media is going to have to. They can't just keep picking up on these things and turning them into big deals. They're going to have to just kind of get used to them. Are you kind of concerned with the fact that the future of the political atmosphere in the United States is probably 75 years old plus moving forward?
Well, I think it's certainly a concern. I wish that there was somebody, that was younger that was going to rise to the top of the ticket, most likely, and I don't see that happening at this point. But I do want to say this. I think that if Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden were elected president of the United States, they would certainly be more presidential than Donald Trump. I mean, I think there's any number of people that would be more presidential than Donald Trump, both Democrats and Republicans. I'd like to get back to the place where we can point to the president of the United States as a role model for our kids on how to conduct themselves. I mean, if one of our kids conducted themselves like Donald Trump, we'd pull our hair out. We'd also, probably ground them and take some severe disciplinary action against them. Do something. Take their phone away at this point.
Yeah, Michael, how many adults in America over the past 3 years have made the statement, I wouldn't let my child do that, or he would be punished, or, it would be just absolutely unacceptable if he did what the president of the United States did. It's been numerous times, right?
Well, right. And then a lot of those same people yet support Donald Trump as the president of the United States. And that's a disconnect for me. How can you support somebody that you cannot have a basic level of respect for, to the point where you would point to that individual as a role model for your kid? I don't understand that.
Well, the only I'll give you one of the reasons. I think one of the reasons is that it was either him or Hillary. That's the excuse they give, right? They're like, oh, I just could not handle Hillary being in the White House. It was the either or argument that they made. And then also, look, it's not just about his conduct, right? It's also, there's people that voted against their interest. There's people in West Virginia. There's people in Michigan. There's people in Pennsylvania who voted for Donald Trump expecting to get something, didn't get it, and now they're in a spot where it's not in their best interest that he is the commander-in-chief. And so, it's basically a regrettable situation, and that they're having to live with it. That's another thing too. It's not just about how he acts or what he says about Deborah Messing or his personality. It's about him being in the White House and it being completely detrimental to Americans around the country that actually voted for him.
I agree 100%. I mean, anyone that's listening to the show that has heard me in the past, I mean, I've touched base on these issues
yes,
many, many times in the past. What I will say is that we are seeing a decline, I think, in his behavior and in the way that he's conducting himself. I think that he is going about things over the last 2 or 3 weeks in an alarming fashion, even more alarming than usual. And if this spiral downward continues, I don't know where we're going to be a year from now.
Yeah, JD brought it up, of course, and look, we are a matter of 14 months away from election 2020, and an opportunity for the Democrats to put somebody up there. And I want to get a quick thought, what you thought, Michael, about Wednesday. Of course, we had a marathon of 7 hours of 10 of the Democratic presidential candidates participating in those back-to-back CNN town hall events on climate change, and JD brought up, of course, gaffes that have been made, and there were some comments regarding Kamala Harris as far as that controversial to say the least, and of course Joe Biden had an interesting exchange as well too. Just want to get kind of your general thoughts on what went down on Wednesday in that town hall.
Well, I didn't like the format, frankly, of having so many of them back to back. I don't think that was efficient. I don't think it was the best way to go about presenting some of the issues. I think that they should have had an extended debate on climate change, a dedicated debate. They had talked about it. I was supportive of the concept, and I think that's what they should have done. I mean, I think it's an important issue. And to the people that say, well, why should we have a dedicated debate on that but not other issues? Look, I'm not opposed to having another debate on other issues. That doesn't necessarily mean we don't have a debate on climate change, and if people want to tune in, they tune in, and if they don't, they change the channel. It's just that simple. So I don't think that they went about it the right way. I think they should have just had a 2 or 3 hour dedicated debate on climate change and let the chips fall where they may.
Joe Biden had a blood vessel burst in his eye on national television, which was indicative of. I mean, he's had health issues. He almost died in 1988. He's had several strokes. But having a blood vessel, burst in your eye is indicative of high blood pressure, under, being in a stressful situation, among other things. Do you think that he has what it takes to kind of maintain and to follow through with the mental rigors that are going to be part of, running for president in 2020 still?
Well, I think he does because of the matchup. You've heard me say this many, many times. It's all about the matchup. It's all about who are you going to call from the bullpen in to pitch to that batter in that particular situation. And in this case, it's Donald Trump. He's the batter. So who's going to match up best against Donald Trump? And when you really look at the 5 key states, and this is a race in 5 states, it doesn't matter whether the Democrat wins by 10 million votes in California and New York. This race is going to come down to those 5 states. And in those 5 states, under the circumstances, I think Joe Biden matches up best against Donald Trump. Now, would I like the matchup as well if it was somebody younger than Trump, if it was somebody that was a little more disciplined relating to his gaffes and the like? No, but I like that matchup. I like calling Joe Biden in from the bullpen to pitch to Donald Trump, the batter, in this particular situation. So I do think that he has the stamina. Do I wish he was 20 years younger? Sure, absolutely. But he's not. And so I think that we got to go with the best horse. And I think that horse is Joe Biden.
Michael, am I oversimplifying it by saying that it comes down really to voters? It came down to 70,000 votes in 2016 to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And you take a look at it now, and credible polls out there all over the place. And look, I get it. 2016 was an outlier and was extraordinary, and I'm not using extraordinary as a compliment to what went down in 2016, but it basically came down to 70,000 votes in those 3 states. And as of right now, I believe all 3 candidates on the Democratic side, whether it's Elizabeth Warren, whether it's, of course, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, all 3 of them are, at least in Wisconsin, I know for sure, are beating Donald Trump. So am I making it too simple by saying that that's going to be the nuts and bolts, I think, of the 2020 election?
Well, perhaps a little too simple. I mean, the race is going to come down to 5 states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Florida. Many people are already writing off Ohio for the Democrats. I think it's a little too premature to do that. I still think that we have a shot at Ohio. The same thing as it relates to Florida. But you got to remember, Donald Trump has a lot of closet support. What I mean by that is you can't necessarily rely on the polls. But what I will say is this. The only polls that matter to me are the statewide polls in those 5 states. These national polls that show some of the Democratic candidates, blowing them out by 10 points, et cetera, that doesn't mean anything to me because the race has basically already been decided to a certain degree in many states like New York and California. I don't believe Texas will be in play for the Democrats yet, unfortunately. So when people look at this polling data, they really need to focus on those 5 states because that's where the race is going to come down to. Now, a lot of people may not like that. A lot of people may claim that we should get rid of the Electoral College, et cetera, which I too believe that we should get rid of the Electoral College at this point. But that's not going to happen between now and 2020, if ever.
We're on a Friday in the Ring with Michael Avenatti. We have a quick break we're going to take here on the Vegas Take and then come back with him and your phone calls, too, at 702-257-5396. My name is Chris Wynn. I'm in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp. We are coming to you live from the studios of 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON. Welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Friday edition here. Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp. 11 o'clock, I will be joined by Lee Goldberg from the GCI guys, as well as Brian Feldman from Out of Line, Fox Sports Radio. We're going to talk some NFL Week 1 as it kicked off last night in Chicago. Bears-Packers, oldest rivalry in the game. A little bit of a surprise in that matchup. We'll talk about that, as well as, of course, all the drama over on the left coast with the Oakland Raiders and AB. What is going down? We'll get into it and that much more. We're joined on the phone lines right now by and in the ring with Michael Avenatti, esteemed attorney, who joins the show every week and has an opportunity on a Friday to chime in as we've been talking about the Democratic candidates as well as President Trump. Some of the stuff that's gone down in the last week is we've had a very difficult hurricane to deal with, both off the coast and now on the East Coast. So the phone line's wide open, though. 702-257-5396 is the phone line. I want to get Michael's take also on the situation regarding President Trump and his border wall. Of course, the details regarding financing, a little bit sketchy, but not really, okay? Because we're finding out that there's going to be some funds diverted from our military in a number of key spots around the country. And, of course, that has to be extremely upsetting to a lot of military personnel, military people, period, whether it's families, whether it's people who are actually on active duty, regarding how the funds being diverted for $3.5 billion to allegedly start building Donald Trump's wall. Now, Michael, I have to imagine that, look, I brought it up in the last segment about people, voting against their own interests. This has got to be something that is not going down well with military members, knowing that whether it's their schools, whether it's their housing, whether it's whatever aspect of their life back here at home when they're not, out serving abroad, that this is going to take a hit financially to build a wall that the majority of Americans don't even want built.
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to go over well with military families. I also, frankly, think the bigger issue that's not going to go over well with military families is the change by the administration within the last couple of weeks relating to babies that are born to military members serving overseas and the fact that they will not automatically be deemed to be U.S. citizens. I just find that to be outrageous. Members of the military don't have an option as to where they're stationed for the most part. And if someone is shipped off to some faraway land with their family and their wife, or significant other happens to be pregnant and have a child, I mean, that child should absolutely be deemed to be a United States citizen.
Now, look, Michael,
I was shocked.
Like, Michael, I'm a layperson, okay? You're an attorney, so you'd be more wired in on this. Is this something that is actually feasible? Is this something, I mean, what is going to have to transpire here from President Trump or from Stephen Miller or whoever it is that's going to, make the steps or, push this through? How is this going to happen where you could actually have service members giving birth to children over in Korea or in Japan or you name the country and the kids are not American citizens? How is this going to actually happen?
Well, I think it's going to happen pretty easily. I mean, I haven't looked at this in detail, but my understanding is it's well within the administration's rights to change this policy. And if the child is not born on U.S. soil, technically they're not entitled to citizenship, although no one has ever taken that approach before, to the best of my knowledge, for obvious reasons. But I think it's outrageous. I mean, you've got people that are serving the interests of the United States, trying to keep us all free and safe. I mean, these people should be afforded every right to have their child deemed a U.S. citizen upon birth.
702-257-5396 is the phone line. We're here live on the Vegas Take. Michael Avenatti joining us on the phone lines. Let's jump out to the phones and see what's going on. Gary, what's going on? It's Chris Wynn along with Michael Avenatti and JD.
Don't interrupt with me, okay, so I don't get tongue-tied.
Okay, I got you covered.
Fair enough, Gary.
I lived in New Jersey all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on a casino, okay, that he owned. Now, remember when he went bankrupt? Now, they have head counts for each trade, how many men's on the job. Now, they were cheating, giving more head counts, anywhere from 1 to 5 people, each trade, ever what they were doing. Now, he caught them. He went bankrupt. And a lot of the contractors went down, and that's the reason why he went bankrupt. Now, as far as the other go, okay, where the old Union way, give them something to talk about. Give them propaganda, kitchen table talk, okay? People are petty. You got vultures out there, okay? Now, let's go in the military end of it, of the school. Now, I go back and forth. I live in a motorhome, okay, and I go back and forth to New Jersey. Now, I'll take you up at Fort Dix, and you have some buildings that are not even used for years. And each post has a lot of buildings are empty where they can put them kids and set up classrooms. Now, what's wrong with that?
Well, basically, you sound like you're making good sense, but I don't understand. Are you making a statement as to what you think Trump should do, or that he's doing right, or that he's doing wrong? I'm trying to figure out what exactly direction you're trying to go here.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to follow.
Yeah. What's wrong with that? Yeah, like what I mean, I guess you're trying to point out what exactly, either buildings that are not being used on military bases can be used for, and then trying to either make a claim that is the president doing a good job on this, or is the president going the right direction here?
Follow it this way, okay? Like I say, people are petty. The old Union way is give them propaganda, to give them kitchen table talk and everything else, and the vultures on TV, and you have a lot of vultures on this here radio station. Okay, thank you. I'm hanging up.
All right, yeah. So basically, you're making the points that Donald Trump has shady business practices, I guess, back in the
honestly,
day. And he went bankrupt.
I don't know what
then
he was talking
about.
I have no
the
clue.
military bases and where they could put people, I guess. I assume he's talking about refugees. I don't really know. But, have a good weekend, though. 702-257-5396. Michael Avenatti joining us on the phone line as well, too. Carl joins us now here on the Vegas Take. Carl, what's going on?
What's up, Carl?
Good. Yeah, how you guys doing?
Doing great.
I think I was on before and Michael was on. I want to just refer to something. You all know that I'm a retired clinical psychologist, but
I have picked up on that.
I want to refer to something. You talk about Biden, and you're worried. Some people are worried about his cognitive abilities and his age and so forth. Well, compared to Trump, I don't know. I know what to look for. Maybe other people don't. But Trump's cognitive destruction is getting worse and worse daily. I'm being honest with you. I know what to look for, certain signs and certain things he says, and how he repeats himself over and over again. And what bothers me is everybody knows he's a pathological liar. But what really bothers me, I wish I could study him more, is that when he lies, if he knows what he's doing is one thing. But when he lies and he doesn't know he's lying, that's far worse, clinically.
Well, I find it extremely rich that any Trump supporters out there are talking about cognitive ability, intelligence. When it comes to Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, you go down the line. It is absolutely laughable to me that they're going to try to contend that Donald Trump is this, upstanding, intellectual, just absolutely serviceable being. It's hilarious to me.
He's so far from intellectual.
Yes.
It's not funny. I don't think he may have gone to school, but I doubt if he attended much. His father paid for him to college. He said he was top of his class, and he wasn't even he was at the bottom 2 or 3, if you check his records. Really bad, really bad.
And I think about all of them, really, I think Bernie Sanders is the most sound mind, down to, you see some of his interviews from back in the 80s, and it doesn't seem to me that Bernie Sanders lost much of a step now. That's my personal opinion, but I'd like to think what you guys think about that.
My final thought is that he wants money for the wall. He keeps saying we're building a lot of it. It's going up beautifully. There's 0 foot put on. They refurbished about 150 miles of what Obama originally put up. And mark my words, if he gets any money for that, which I don't think he will, you know who's going to get it? Friends of his in the construction business. He's going to hire them.
I could absolutely see that. Hey, appreciate the phone call. Have a good weekend,
Sure.
Okay?
You too.
702-257-5396. Michael Avenatti is on the line with us. We're talking about Donald Trump and the building of the border wall. I also wanted to kind of get some thoughts also regarding gun control because Joe Manchin is apparently going to meet with the president and have some discussions regarding some things along those lines. So 702-257-5396 is the phone line. Jim joins us now on the phone line. Jim, what's going on? Thanks for the time.
Today?
Hey, what's up, Jim?
Chime in on the citizenship if you're born overseas with military.
Right.
Both of my parents were born in Ohio, and when my dad was in the Air Force, he was stationed at the Azores Islands. I was born there in 1955. I did not get my citizenship papers to 1967. That's when I had to go down. So I had to go down, even though my parents were American citizens, and I was born on Portuguese soil since it was not a U.S. Air Force base. I did have to get citizenship papers, and everything I apply for now, go do driver's license. I am required, if I have to show my citizenship papers that I'm a U.S. citizen. So I'm not sure what that change is in the law, but it's always been something that's been there. And I'm a person who, like I said, had to go down to get citizenship papers when I was older.
So, Michael, you think about this, and look, I just don't understand why he does this because it's just flat out vindictive. It's mean, right?
Well,
what kind of person doesn't have empathy and wants? This isn't something that is done because of national security. This isn't done because of some policy. This is just done because you've got somebody like Stephen Miller or whoever else in his ear, right? And is just chirping away. And so, so now I feel like I have to do something, right?
Well, to address the caller, I don't know the caller's exact situation,
Mm-hmm.
but my best guess is that the distinction here is that even though the caller had to go out or go and get the actual papers demonstrating that he was a citizen, it was automatically granted under the policy then in place. The issue now is that it's not going to be automatically granted. That's what we're talking about here.
Okay.
People are going to have to apply for it. And they're going to have to be awarded citizenship for their child, which is a break from the policy that has existed, to the best of my knowledge, for decades or longer. So, why is this being done? I think you're absolutely right. I think it's being done in furtherance of the administration's policies of wanting to prevent as as many people as possible from becoming U.S. citizens, and it runs counter to what built this country and what this country has been all about.
And look, I am an avid listener to KDWN here when I'm not in here just filling in. And I was listening to some right-wing shows last week, and there were some callers actually calling in, and they were dead serious trying to say that we need to stop immigration altogether into the United States, legal or illegal.
Which is completely insane.
Ludicrous and beyond the pale, to be quite honest with you. And, you know, this is just kind of like, an extension of that, but sometimes I just don't understand what people are thinking. 702-257-5396 is the phone number.
So Michael, Elizabeth Warren has been really rising in the polls. Do you think that that's legitimate, and does she actually have a legitimate shot of taking on Joe Biden?
I think her rise in the polls within the Democratic Party is legitimate. I think that she is, very good at a number of things. I think she's a great campaigner. I think she's put forth a number of very strong policy positions. She has no shot of beating Donald Trump in 2020. I mean, she's just not. She can't beat him in those 5 key states. Look, I'm sorry for the Elizabeth Warren supporters out there. I'm sorry. I'm a fan of the senator. I think she's a tremendous senator, and I think she'd make a hell of a president. But it's all about the matchup, ladies and gentlemen, and she can't beat Donald Trump. And if the Democrats nominate her as the nominee, and if the economy stays where it is, they will be shocked, although they should not be, when he's reelected in 2020. It's just that simple.
Do you foresee any Democratic candidate right now that is not necessarily high in the polls who has a chance to rise and contend against Joe Biden?
I don't see it, although that doesn't necessarily mean it couldn't happen.
Like a Tulsi Gabbard?
No. I think that the nominee is most likely going to be either Biden, Sanders, or Warren. I think those are the 3 most likely nominees. I think it's very unlikely that anyone is going to be able to mount a challenge to them, certainly not anyone that's in the race right now. And I think that unless something significant happens with his health, he should be the nominee. I hope he's the nominee for the reasons that I stated previously. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. The Democrats better not let perfection be the enemy of the good. Let's not be so focused on nominating the person that would be absolutely perfect and progressive. That's not this election. We've got to solve this dumpster fire of a presidency. We got to nominate the person that's got the best shot of beating Donald Trump, and that's Joe Biden, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, Michael, don't you think the general mindset of anybody that's not a Trump supporter, right, is this? We have to get him out of the White House by any means necessary. And, look, there's the thoughts of the 25th Amendment and, whether or not, he does things that are illegal, that can get him in trouble. But the bottom line is this, if he ends up still being president by the election of 2020, which is extremely likely, let's be honest about it, okay, that it's all about just getting him out. And look, you can say there's detractors, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Bernie Sanders. There's pros and cons to everybody, but the fact of the matter is, right, and the general consensus from everybody, whether you're a never Trumper like myself, or you're on the left, or you're center left like Brian contends to be, people like it's all about just getting the guy out of office.
I agree with that,
yeah.
But the problem is that there's too many Democrats, especially on Twitter and social media, that they don't get it. I mean, they don't understand that some of these candidates have no shot of beating Donald Trump in these 5 electoral states. They just don't get it. Many of them have not ever traveled to those states, let alone been to those states in the last 12 or 18 months and actually talked to voters about what they think about Donald Trump. I mean, I have. I've spent an enormous amount of time in those states in the last 12 to 18 months because I was thinking about running. I've talked to these voters, and let me just tell you something. They don't see Donald Trump the way that we see him on, on the coasts. They just don't. They have a very different view of this guy and what he's all about. Now, we can piss and moan and complain and throw our hands up and say, how is that possible? And, what are these people, stupid? And all kinds of other nonsense that I hear some Democrats say. Or we can accept that fact and nominate somebody that can actually communicate with a lot of these voters and can provide us with a path to the White House. That's what we've got to do. But I see so much nonsense on Twitter and on social media from a number of Democrats. They just don't get it. They don't understand where the temperature of the nation really is. They think that you can take the temperature in Manhattan or in Los Angeles, or in Boston, Massachusetts. Look, you can't take the temperature of the country there. That's not the temperature of the country. You got to go to these key states, and that's what matters. And I'm going to keep beating on that drum until the Democrats nominate somebody that can actually beat this guy.
And I would agree with you, too. Some of them, I think, are just light in the backside. We need a fighter. We need somebody that's going to go out there. And I think Joe Biden can be that guy. I do. Does he make gaffes? Yes, he does. Are there times where, he has positions that I don't agree with? Yes. But I also think that he is the best choice and the best chance to beat Donald Trump.
My issue with him is his mental acuity is not going to improve. He's only going to get older. And
we're talking about Donald Trump being the president right now.
I understand all these candidates are going to be 75 plus.
So Joe Biden looks like a rocket scientist compared to Donald Trump.
I
completely
disagree with that.
Well, I think when it comes to being a politician, and I hate this too when people say, you know what? We want somebody who's not a politician in there. Let me tell you something, okay? There's a reason why you don't make the plumber president of the United States. There's a reason you don't make a guy who's a 9 to 5, you don't make him president of the United States. We want politicians to be politicians, okay? I don't understand this whole notion, oh yeah, it's great because he's not in Washington D.C. Let me tell you something, okay? There's a reason why former senators, former representatives, people who have been in D.C., there's a reason why this is the first time a quote-unquote businessman, I don't know how great a businessman he is, but a businessman has been in the White House. It's because, there's a method to the madness, all right? There's a wealth of experience that's earned and learned when you're in Washington, D.C. and dealing with these people. Are there politicians that lie? Absolutely. Are there politicians that have shady backgrounds or shady dealings? Absolutely. But, it's the nature of the beast, and I think that's something that gets way underplayed when people try to play the old, we should. It's great that we have, somebody else that's not a politician in the White House.
So I'm gonna push back on you a little bit here, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why. The reason why we have a problem with Donald Trump right now is not because of his lack of experience in Washington or the fact that he did not hold political office.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why he is a terrible president is because he doesn't have the judgment and the temperament necessary for the job.
No doubt.
That's our problem with Donald Trump. If we would have elected George Clooney, for instance, I'll just throw that name out there.
Mm-hmm.
Had we elected George Clooney, would we be having the same arguments and problems with George Clooney as president of the United States? Of course not.
No.
Even though George Clooney never held elected office before. So I don't think the problem is that we elected a reality TV star, we elected a businessman, or we elected a non-politician.
Right.
The problem is we elected the wrong man as a man. We elected the wrong human being and his makeup to be president of the United States. If this guy had the proper temperament, if he was smarter, if he was compassionate, if he had empathy, if he had better judgment, if he wasn't such a petulant child and had to engage in all of these Twitter feuds, et cetera, we'd be a lot better off. And it would have nothing to do with the fact that he's never held elected office.
Great thoughts from attorney Michael Avenatti. You can catch him in the ring almost every Wednesday here on the Vegas Take as he's joining us here on a Friday, getting us ready for the weekend. Michael, we appreciate the time. Enjoy yourself the next few days and have a good weekend, okay?
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy it.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Chris Wynn, along with J.D. Sharper here live in studio. Brian Shapiro out today. He's under the weather a little bit, but we're going to have a lot of fun here coming up in the third hour. We're going to talk a little sports as week one of the NFL gets ready to roll. We'll be joined by Lee Goldberg of the GCI guys as well as Brian Feldman. as well. So the Vegas Take is coming your way live. We'll be back after this. You're tuned to 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.